Good evening and welcome to BATV News. I'm Kalila Reynolds. Inflation is back on target. The Bank of Jamaica, BOJ, says it's now confident that the country will meet the inflation target projected for this fiscal year. The central bank is predicting that their policy interest rate will place the country right at the center of the 4 to 6% inflation target. The announcements were made at the BOJ's quarterly press briefing this morning. Here's more.
The BOJ is reporting that the country will record 4.7% inflation by March if the monetary environment is right. Reports from the Statistical Institute of Jamaica show that inflation stood at 4.7% for the 12 months ended October, after falling out of the 4 to 6% target in August. Governor of the BOJ, Brian Winter, says their policy interest rate, which remains at 2%, seeks to do just that.
This policy decision reflects the bank's assessment that inflation will rise close to the upper band of the 4 to 6% target over the 3 quarters to June 2019 and will trend thereafter to the middle of the target range. We view current monetary conditions as appropriate to support inflation returning to the center of the target over the medium term. We therefore decided to make no change to the policy rate.
He admits that there are a few risks to the forecast. He points to worsening trade tensions and oil prices as possible cause for underachieving.
The main downside risks that would cause inflation to be lower than our baseline forecast include a worsening in domestic demand conditions in Jamaica that would be associated with lower than anticipated US GDP growth in the context of an escalation in trade tensions. Additionally, international commodity prices, especially crude oil prices, could turn out to be lower than we expect.
And bad weather conditions as well as higher than expected domestic demands are upside risks.
The current accommodative monetary conditions could spur an even faster rise in domestic demand and therefore higher inflation than the baseline forecast. Bad weather conditions, second-round effects of administered price changes, and an increase in inflation expectations are additional upside risks.
But the head of the central bank described the current economic environment as favorable. He says the BOJ will accommodate market changes through supportive monetary policies. For BATV News, I'm Jamila Maitland.
Meanwhile, the BOJ governor says the public should expect greater market movement associated with its recent policy interest rate announcement. The central bank has decided to hold the policy rate at 2%. The announcement was made this morning at the BOJ's quarterly press briefing. Jamila Maitland reports.
The BOJ's policy interest rate has been at 2% since June. BOJ's Governor Brian Winter says they're already seeing the positive impacts of the low rate on the economy. He's predicting more economic growth now that the rate remains unchanged for at least another month.
We are also continuing to see an encouraging pickup in credit extended by deposit-taking institutions to the private sector. In this regard, the bank's decision to hold the policy rate unchanged at this time should continue to encourage increased economic activity and job creation financed by strong growth in credit to the private sector.
While acknowledging that financial institutions have increased the number of loans to the public in recent times, Governor Winter says that this new monetary environment will further encourage the banks. He's calling on the public to further drive competition amongst the banks to stimulate growth.
Because in that environment, they will do more credit, do more business, they'll make more money. But it's up to them to make their choices, and they have their own different strategies. We can comment on them, as people do, but what we want to see at the bank is the public exercising the pressure of competition out there. And the advertising that you mentioned, I think, is certainly an indicator of that. We think there's more that Jamaicans can expect that is coming in this environment.
He says this way everyone benefits.
At Bank of Jamaica, we believe that Jamaica will benefit from improvements, increases in competitive behavior, and we will keep looking for ways in which we can encourage that. And I think that will redound to the benefit of the consumer, to small businesses, all businesses. And to be honest with you, it's also going to be beneficial to the banks.
For BATV News, I'm Jamila Maitland.
The Financial Services Commission, FSC, is warning investors in unregistered financial organizations such as the Loom that they're at risk of losing their money. He says they're also helping to fund criminal organizations. Sashana Small has more.
If it looks too good to be true, it probably is. That's the warning from Communication and International Relations Manager at the FSC, David Geddes, regarding unregistered financial organizations, UFOs, such as the Loom. These UFOs promise investors huge returns with little to no risk. In the popular Loom, which has been making the rounds on social media, investors put in as little as $5,000 and are promised a return of up to $40,000. But the initial organizer must recruit other investors who in turn must also continue to get other people to invest in a seemingly never-ending circle. Each person in the Loom must recruit 2 investors to complete the circle for each investor to cash in. When an investor reaches the middle of the circle, that investor can cash out. Mr. Geddes says these get-rich-quick schemes have surfaced because people are impatient to invest legitimately. But he says his organization will continue to work to eradicate these schemes. He also points out that these schemes tend to target young people, which he argues is a desperate move by the operators. He is therefore appealing to investors to find out as much as they can about investing and to check before they invest. He says losing your money and funding criminal organizations aren't the only consequences of investing in a pyramid scheme. There are also legal consequences. In the meantime, Mr. Geddes says that the FSC will be doing its part to educate people about the dangers of investing in these schemes. For BATV News, I'm Sashana Small.
And when we come back, Elite Diagnostics sees an 83% fall off in profits. We'll tell you why after the break. Welcome back. Elite Diagnostics saw an 83% drop in profits for the first quarter of the 2018-19 financial year. This was despite a steady increase in revenues for the quarter. Javon Keys tells us why.
Elite Diagnostics saw a massive drop in net profit for the first quarter, which ended September 2018. The figure fell some 83% below last year, moving from 10.7 million Jamaican dollars to $1.8 million. The company says the storage and maintenance of its third MRI unit, which has not been installed, weighed heavily on the decline. The new machine is for its new branch to be opened in St. Anne. However, revenues for the quarter went up, moving from almost $70 million for the same period in 2017 to $85.4 million. The revenue obtained from the Ligonier branch also saw a notable increase, moving from $9.6 million to $23.7 million. The company notes that all the offerings at the Ligonier branch have seen growth in demand, despite the branch not yet being fully utilized. In the meantime, Elite also says depreciation relating to its assets also weighed on its bottom line. That figure increased by $5.2 million, amounting to $14 million. The company's assets at the end of the quarter were worth $588 million. That's more than double last year. Liabilities also increased in value, moving from almost $132 million to $187 million. Elite Diagnostics says as this quarter persists, they continue to see a robust demand for MRIs. They're also expecting steady growth moving forward, with the Ligonier branch being fully operational for a complete quarter. Elite says it's also excited for the opening of its new branch in St. Anne, which is slated for mid-2019. For BATV News, I'm Javon Keys.
Just about a year after Red Stripe introduced its new Line 8 and the use of liquefied natural gas LNG in its production, the company is already reaping great benefits. Red Stripe is reporting more than 42 million Jamaican dollars in savings. According to the company's technical operations manager, Neville Alexander, the plant's LNG conversion has boosted production by 50%, reduced carbon emissions by 6,000 tons, and increased its electrical and steam output by 30%. The first phase of the LNG conversion was completed in October last year. The final stage will see the transitioning of 3 steam boilers with a total capacity of 28,000 kilograms. It should be completed by the middle of this month. A passenger who was aboard the Fly Jamaica flight that crashed at the Chedijagan airport in Guyana over a week ago has died. She's 86-year-old Rukia Kalu. Reports from the Guyana online publication News Source are that she died Friday at the Georgetown Hospital after she'd been transferred from the privately owned Woodlands Hospital, where the doctors are reported to have said there was not much more they could do. It says, according to family members, the doctors said there was swelling of her brain and there was not much they could do to ease the swelling. In a statement on its Instagram page, Fly Jamaica says it's saddened to learn of Mrs. Kalu's passing, but it says it was unrecorded whether or not she had received any treatment for injuries as a result of the accident. Petrojam has received its last payment from the now bankrupt company Aegean Marine Petroleum. In a statement, Petrojam says it has received $337,000 from the Greek company, which settles its debt with Petrojam. Aegean Marine Petroleum filed for bankruptcy protection in the United States earlier this month. Opposition spokesman on energy Philip Paulwell had raised concerns in Parliament that the company owed Petrojam over $3 million. However, Petrojam later refuted those claims, saying all amounts owing for deliveries made to Aegean before November 4 had been fully settled. Petrojam said the company only owed them $370,000 for the last delivery on November 4, and that was paid in full last Friday. The Transport Authority met today with bus and taxi drivers and owners after several of them staged protests around the corporate area today. The meeting was convened in a bid to clarify concerns of the transport operators, particularly taxis. According to a statement from the authority, they discussed concerns about the new Road Traffic Act, specifically the section which will see owners being accountable for the traffic tickets of their operators. Also discussed was the lack of parking, insufficient supply of trained drivers, and the processing of driver badges for the operators. The authority says the meeting enabled greater clarity between the parties, and the concerns will now be elevated through the appropriate channels. Meanwhile, the authority says it received information that there might be plans by some persons to stone buses owned by the Jamaica Urban Transit Company, JUTC. This in a bid to force them off the road as the taxi operators protest. The authority says that though they support an individual's right to peaceful protest, it objects to anyone creating mayhem on the nation's roads. They encourage the leadership of the transportation associations to assist in preventing unscrupulous persons from indulging in any such illegal activity. And when we come back, we'll have regional and international news. Stay with us. Welcome back. Time now for regional and international news. Nissan chief Carlos Ghosn has been arrested for financial misconduct in Japan. He's being accused of underreporting his income. More in this report.
He's one of the best paid auto executives in the world. As chairman of the Renault-Nissan-Mitsubishi Alliance, he's thought to earn an average of €9 million a year. Now his salary has landed him in trouble. Arrested in Tokyo on Monday, Carlos Ghosn is suspected of underreporting his income to Japanese authorities. In a statement, auto giant Nissan said it's been conducting an internal investigation for months on the basis of a whistleblower report.
Numerous other significant acts of misconduct have been uncovered, such as personal use of company assets.
As a result, the company has said it proposes removing its chairman. And French automaker Renault shares have hit their lowest level in 4 years because of the news. Ghosn is widely considered the most powerful executive in the industry. He's led recoveries at all 3 of his brands thanks to huge corporate overhauls. The most recent was in 2016, when the 64-year-old took charge at troubled Mitsubishi after Nissan bought a 1/3 stake in the company, which was wrestling with a mileage cheating scandal. For the past 2 decades, Ghosn's maintained a high profile in Japan, where foreign chief executives of Japanese companies are still relatively rare.
Closer to home in Trinidad and Tobago, the industrial court has ordered a meeting between the Oilfield Workers Union and Petrotrin for tomorrow. It's hoped that the meeting will settle outstanding matters between the union and Petrotrin. Here's more.
The Oilfields Workers Trade Union is prepared and ready to meet with Petrotrin on Tuesday morning as ordered by the Industrial Court. During the reading of the judgment today, the court revealed the company did not act in good faith with the union. The court heard that on April, the memorandum of agreement was met with both parties on a restructure, but Petrotrin went to close the company before consulting the union. The court ruled there are outstanding matters the company needs to cover with the union.
It's used for the rehiring process. What is the purpose? What is the proposed structure of the company? Pensions and medical plans of the workers saving plan and other benefits, computation of termination packages.
Chinese President Xi Jinping will be visiting the Philippines this week. And while analysts see this as another way for China to assert its power in the region, government officials are hopeful it will strengthen economic ties. Here's Al Jazeera's Jamila Alindogan with more.
Many Filipinos see the recent Association of Southeast Asian Forum in Singapore as a missed opportunity, and they're blaming the sleeping habits of President Rodrigo Duterte. He missed at least 5 events at the summit because his spokesman says the president needed to take power naps. The 73-year-old leader also dismissed the importance of a meeting with Australian diplomats.
Hindi ako kumakain ng breakfast.
The invite says it was an informal summit anyway. I don't eat breakfast. What do you think they will serve there? Kangaroo?
Anong ipakain lang dyan sa atin, informal? Garok.
Remarks like that anger many here who say the Philippines is already damaging relationships with regional allies. A framework on a code of conduct between China and ASEAN is expected to lay the ground rules for navigation and exploration in disputed waters. But now President Rodrigo Duterte says there's not much that can be done because he says the South China Sea is now in China's possession. This week's visit by China's president is another reason to worry analysts.
Although it may be laughable, but for the Chinese, they will look at that and they will see that as a fundamental weakness within our capacity to resist them. So they will be very condescending with us. They will humor us, with agreements and so on and so forth, but it's how they look at us, a nation that just wants money.
Government leaders dismiss that, saying Xi Jinping's visit is aimed at strengthening economic ties, with hopes of securing more Chinese loans to fund infrastructure projects. Other more secret deals, such as the Maritime Research Agreement between Philippines and China, are worrying because of the lack of public scrutiny, especially after the Philippines won its case at an international tribunal 2 years ago about a territorial dispute in the South China Sea.
China is still an adverse claimant to much of the West Philippine Sea because, of course, aside from its sheer size economically and militarily, it has demonstrated that it is unwilling to compromise.
When he was sworn into office, Duterte promised to pursue an independent foreign policy, moving away from long-standing ally the United States and building closer relations with China and Russia. 2 years on, and some over here are wondering whether Duterte really wants more independence or is capitulating to China. Jamela Alindogan, Al Jazeera, Manila.
The first American Airlines flight arrived at the Chedijagan International Airport in Guyana last Thursday. The flight was met with much celebration as it marks the start of flights between North and South America.
American Airlines will connect Guyana to nearly 150 destinations in the U.S. and other countries. Here is Robert Wirrick, Managing Director, International Government Affairs, American Airlines.
This new service is a culmination of months of planning and hard work by our teams, and I'd like to give a very special thanks to Acting Prime Minister, the Honorable Carl Greenridge.
Minister of Foreign Affairs Carl Greenridge, performing the duties of Prime Minister, said the entrance of American Airlines is a positive step towards the development of air services in Guyana.
Without a doubt, this venture will improve not only Guyana's connectivity to the U.S., but also to the areas beyond the United States, and will generate trade, promote tourism, and create employment opportunities.
The plane spent roughly 2 hours on the ground before winging out back fully booked. The airline doesn't have an office in Guyana. The airline commences operation with 4 flights weekly.
In the weeks ahead, American Airlines will be looking to add more flights between the U.S. and the Guyana market. Handel Duncan, HGP Nightly News, the Chedijagan International Airport.
Stay with us. Talking Stocks comes up next. Welcome back. Time now for Talking Stocks. 51 stocks traded today, of which 25 advanced, 21 declined, and 5 traded firm. The main JSE index advanced by 2,880 points to close at over 357,000 points. The junior index declined by 2 points to close at 3,000 points. Over 14 million units traded today, valued at more than $449 million on the Jamaican dollar market. While on the U.S. dollar market, over 17,000 units traded, valued at $3,347 US. Grace Kennedy, with a little over 7 million units trading, accounted for 49% of market volume. Derrimon Trading ordinary shares with a little over 500,000 units trading was second, and Panjam Investment with more than 300,000 units trading was third, accounting for 2% of market volume. The main advancers were Stanley Motor ordinary shares up 70 cents to close at $5.25, followed by Main Event Entertainment Group, up 65 cents to close at $6.24, and Derrimont Trading ordinary shares up 18 cents to close at $2.70. The main decliners were Iron Rock Insurance ordinary shares down $1.21 to close at $3.50, followed by Phosphorus Company down 55 cents to close at $3.32, and Caribbean Cement Company down $4.03 to close at $45.62. In foreign exchange trading, the Jamaican dollar gained on all three major currencies today. The U.S. dollar ended the day selling for $126.46, losing 26 cents to the Jamaican dollar. The Canadian dollar ended the day selling for $95.05 on average, a 38-cent loss to the Jamaican dollar. And the British pound lost 46 cents to the Jamaican, ending the day selling at $162.50. And that's the news. But before we go, a recap of our top story. Inflation is back on target. The Bank of Jamaica, BOJ, says it's now confident that the country will meet the inflation target projected for this fiscal year. Thanks for watching. For more content, visit our website at batvja.com. I'm Kalila Reynolds. Pleasant viewing.